Okay, we're going to install your engine stand. This is the piece that goes on your engine stand. These are adjustable here, so you just adjust them for your transmission bell housing bolt holes, wherever it needs to go. This one's already set up. You want to put a washer in between here and the block, and then run a bolt through. These are M10 1.50 thread pitch. And we're using 100mm long bolts. So we'll go ahead and hook this up. This bolt here is actually a little longer than 100mm. That's why we got nuts and washers on here to make up the difference. You just want to get everything on here loose so you can get everything lined up right. Off, so I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. And that's basically it right there. We'll go ahead and tighten this down and get everything ready to go. And I would highly suggest using grade 8 bolts or better, because basically these bolts are going to be what's holding your motor to the engine stand. Okay, now we're going to have to put our engine on our engine stand. As you see, we had to work the engine stand underneath the lift. I would recommend putting a little bit of grease inside the engine stand hole so this thing will spin around freely whenever you get the motor on there. Make sure you put your pin in the hole after you get it lined up. And after you get that in, you're good to go to lower it all the way down. Go slowly just to make sure that it's going to hold it. Didn't have a chance to put them on.
Oh, you always have a chance.
Okay, basically we had to turn our bolts around on the engine stand here because they're in the way of getting to the rear main seal plate that we have to remove, which we'll go into that later. Okay, first off, you want to do a leak down test on your motor to make sure everything's good in it and not leaking or anything. Basically on a leak down tester you have two gauges on here, PSI and your percentage of leak down. Okay, for what we're doing, the PSI gauge is irrelevant. What we're wanting is the cylinder leakage gauge here, which it goes from 100% all the way over to 0%. 100% being full leak and 0% being zero leak. So to set it up, you want to get your needle on the gauge to go all the way to the end of set in the yellow over here on this side. So that's what we'll do right now. You want to have your knob turned all the way counterclockwise, and then have your air compressor set up. It really doesn't matter, probably about 100 psi is what we have ours on. Then we'll hook the air compressor line to the leak down tester. Okay, now we'll set it up. You want to turn your gauge to the right until your needle goes all the way over to set. Probably help if you tap on the glass a little bit. Just make sure it ain't catching on anything. Now if you have it on set, lock it down. Okay, next we'll take the hose that comes with the leak down tester and install it into the spark plug hole. It comes with various adapters for different motors, but in our case our hose is the exact thread pitch for our motor, so we'll go ahead and install it in the number 1 cylinder. And before we go ahead and hook it up, basically you have a 27mm bolt on the crank pulley that you will use to turn the crank with, so you can close the valves, because basically what you're going to have to do is close the valves to get your leak down percentage, because whenever it's opened up you'll hear air escaping out, but we'll go over all that when we go through the process. We'll go ahead and hook it up to the motor now, leak down tester up to the motor. We'll get turn the crank over so we can read our leak down. You basically want to get it where your reading starts to read and then hold the crank steady. Don't move it anymore, just hold it steady and let it leak down as much as it's going to. Whereas in this case, this one is 40% reduction, which is definitely not good. So we have a problem there. Continue to check all 4 cylinders before we diagnose any kind of problems. So we'll go ahead and move on to number 2 now. Okay, before you go to check number 2 cylinder, make sure your leak down tester is still set on set. Sometimes it will fluctuate and move, so you need to go ahead and reset your leak down tester before you hook it up. And now we'll go ahead and hook up number 2. It's the exact same process as number 1. And now we'll go ahead and turn our crank. This one's actually leaking air out, so that's definitely a good leak in it. I don't know if it's in the valves, valve seal, or the head gasket, or the head being warped, but it's a 60% reduction, as you can see. So we'll continue on to number 3. Okay, now we'll go ahead and hook up number 3. Same process as 1 and 2. Go ahead and turn the crank. We're at just above a 40% reduction, so we're bad on that one too. Move on to number 4. Okay, now we'll move on to number 4. Same procedure as 1, 2, and 3. And we'll go ahead and turn our crank. Okay, we're just above 35% reduction on this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and just guess that the head's warped or the head gasket's bad. But we'll go into all the valve oil seals and all that stuff in the head rebuild. Okay, the first thing you'll want to do is remove the alternator belt bracket. It's 2 12mm bolts to remove, and the bracket will come off. Okay, next you have a 14mm bolt that holds the tensioner to the alternator. If you can just leave that on the alternator and take it with the alternator when you go to remove the alternator. Okay, next we're going to loosen the alternator nut on the back. It's a 14mm nut. You want to loosen the nut and the alternator will rotate down. And just let it go all the way down. You want to access the bracket behind it. Okay, next to remove the alternator bracket, you have 3 14mm bolts to remove. One on the left side there is actually the bottom of the bracket for the intake manifold to the block. So we're going to remove all 3 of those. 14mm. And you want to put them all in a Ziploc baggie and label them, because some are different sizes and different thread pitches. So just to make sure you don't get them mixed up, before you go to take the last bolt off, make sure you hold the alternator because it will fall down. Okay, as far as the bolts go, the shorter one goes on the top of the bracket because it's thinner. The middle size one goes on the right side. And then the longer one goes on the left side because it goes through the intake manifold bracket. So you want to keep track of all that. Make sure you label the Ziploc bag and put them all in there so you don't lose anything, and when you go to put it all back together, everything's ready to go. And then next we'll go ahead and just remove the bracket completely for the intake manifold. 14mm bolt on top. Okay, next we're going to remove the other bracket on the other side of the intake manifold. There's 3 14mm bolts. Go ahead and remove all 3 of those. And you want to hold the bracket when you take the last bolt out, because it will fall. And all 3 of those bolts are all the same length. Okay, on the intake manifold brackets, the S14 is on the bottom and the S13 is on top. which they're exactly the same, except the S13 has the extra brace welded on it, and then the S14 has a notch cut out on the side right there for the oil pressure sending unit, which the oil pressure sending unit on the motor is right there on the oil filter bracket. Okay, ours is already removed, but your AC bracket usually bolts in them 4 spots right there. If yours is on there, go ahead and remove it. They're all 14mm bolts. Above that, you have 3 14mm bolts for the power steering bracket. On the power steering bracket, the 2 front ones are the same and the back one is shorter. Okay, to remove the motor mount bracket, there's 4 14mm bolts. Go ahead and remove all 4 of those. And to remove the one above it, the one he's on right now, you'll need to remove the oil filter to access it better. And of course hold the motor mount and bracket while you take the last bolt off so it doesn't fall. And all 4 of those bolts are all the same length. Next, you want to remove the motor mount bracket on this side, 4 14mm bolts. And hold the motor mount while you're taking the last one off so it don't fall. All 4 of those bolts are the same length. Okay, next we're going to remove the oil dipstick. Use a pair of channel locks without damaging it. Just grab it and wiggle it back and forth while pulling up on it. And you'll see it start to come out with the block on the bottom. Keep wiggling on it and pulling up on it. And it'll come out. And remove it out completely. Okay, now we're going to remove the breather separator. There's 3 10mm bolts. Go ahead and take all 3 of those off. All 3 of those bolts are the same length. Next, you want to take the rubber butt of the hammer and tap on it and break the gasket loose. And then just let it hang there. It's going to come off with the manifold. Next, we're going to remove the water neck here. It's 2 12mm bolts. Depending on how much water you actually got out of your motor, it might still drip a little bit when you get this off. Be prepared for that. Both those bolts are the same length. Next, you want to take a 5-in-1 tool or a gasket scraper and hit it with a hammer and break the seal loose in between there. Just tap it lightly. You don't want to gouge it. And that's basically disconnecting that, and that's going to go with the manifold as well. Okay, you have a hose on the intake manifold here. You can either move it right here with this bracket behind the water neck that we just moved, or you can remove it up here behind this water neck with that hose clamp. We're going to move it on this side because we find it easier to move it this way. First thing you want to do is pull your connectors off just to get them out of the way, easier access. Again, loosen up that clamp. Basically all that hose does is just loops around from the back of this to the back of the water neck over there. When you get the clamp loose enough, you want to grab it and wiggle it around to break it loose. Then after you got it broke loose, you need to break the hose loose. You might need to use a screwdriver or a pair of nylon pliers or something without damaging it. Just keep working it off like that and be patient. Now that hose is going to stay on the motor while we remove the intake manifold, so we'll have to remove that later as well. Okay, the hose on the back here goes to the block right there. You can either disconnect it there, which we'll eventually have to do anyways. So you can disconnect it there, you can disconnect it there, or you can remove the two 10mm bolts there and just leave the whole hose with the hard line on the motor, and then get the intake manifold off and then remove it from the block, because it's pretty difficult to get off right here because everything's in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the two 10mm bolts and take it off after we get the manifold off. Okay, now we'll just let that hang there. You could probably go ahead and take the bolts and just thread them back into the manifold. Or you could put them in a Ziploc bag, however you want to do that. The reason we're taking all the bolts off the block and putting them in Ziploc bags is because we'll have to send the block to get it hot tanked, which is basically a chemical cleaning. You don't want to leave any kind of bolts in the block at all. Now we're going to remove the intake manifold bolts, starting with the one on the bottom in the front. We're basically using a wobble extension and some various extensions to get through there. And you're going over the top of the hard line here to the bolt. You can take it off. You basically want to work your way outside in, removing it. Okay, the next one's on the back, on the top. It's a nut, 12mm. You need to work it through the EGR and BPT valves there. Get it over to the nut. We're using the wobble with some smaller extensions. And we'll go ahead and take the magnetic one and get the washer off. Okay, the next one's here on the back below. It's a bolt. We're using the same contraption here. Okay, now we're going to move the next one. It's the one on top. It's a nut. They're all 12mm. There's also a washer on there too. You need to take a magnetic one and get that off. Okay, the next one's on the inside here, on the bottom. Still using the same contraption. Get it down through the runners there. And you want to always take the magnetic one and get the bolt out. Okay, your next one's on top here. Okay, your next one is the one below the one we took off. See right here, his socket is actually touching the piece right there. This is going to be a little more difficult to get off. He's going to have to thread the bolt back in a little bit so he can get his socket off. You just want to thread in just enough to get the probably half a turn, just so you'll have enough to get your socket back off, and you can remove the bolt. Just want to take the magnetic wand and just keep rolling it around the bolt till you get loose. Hey, there we go. Okay, the next one's on the top here. Okay, the next one's down here in the middle, on the bottom. That one right there. Basically, the contraption we're using is all the extensions, and you gotta put it through, you gotta feed it through here, and then put the socket on the front while it's down inside there, because you can't get it to go through the hole on this side over here. And after you got the socket on there, feed it down and get it on the bolt. Again, loose it off. Okay, your last one's on top, right here in the middle. You can remove it off. You don't got to worry about holding the manifold, it's on the studs. You have a stud on this side on top and on the other side on top. So the manifold will stay in place. You want to use the magnetic one to pull the bolt out so it doesn't fall down. Okay, basically here's the layout of all the bolts for the intake manifold. All the ones on the bottom are the same length. The one in the middle on top is the same as the ones on the bottom. You got two long ones in the middle on top, and then you got two nuts and two washers on the ends on top. If you were removing the manifold on the car, you would take one of your nuts, go ahead and thread it on, and then leave enough thread to thread the other one on. So you have two nuts on there, tighten them to each other, and then back off the first nut that you put on so you can remove the stud off the head. So you'll be able to lift the manifold straight up. That's the only way you're going to get it off on the car. But now after we have everything off, if you still have your EGR tube on the back, this right here, it's going to want to hit the head over there, the block over there. So you want to watch out for that when you're pulling it off. Because basically you're going to pull the manifold straight back, but you're going to have to wiggle it off somewhat because it's going to want to hit the EGR tube over there. The bottom of it's going to want to hit the oil filter here, which you could probably just remove the oil filter and get that out of the way. And it should come off fairly easy. We'll go ahead and do that now. Just want to work it off easy. Make sure nothing's catching anywhere or hitting anything. And again, you want to watch your EGR tube on the back because it's going to be wanting to hit the block. And it's off. When you're going to remove your intake manifold off your S13 engine, you have this bracket on the back of the motor here with the two sensors on them. It's got three 12mm bolts that bolt it down to the head. You take that and move it out of the way. Then you have your plunger here. It's held on by two screws. And then you have where the plunger connects to the butterflies in the intake. It's got a little clip right here that clips on right there. Looks like this right here. Just take some needle nose pliers and pull that off, and the plunger will disconnect from it. And then you just want to work that off. You just got to turn it sideways and pull it off like that. And then it'll all come off. Then everything will be disconnected from it. Just make sure you got everything unbolted. Check all your lines everywhere. On my front side here, I went ahead, removed this, broke it loose. I'm going to keep it on the intake manifold. I got the hose on the back of here removed from the front timing cover, which actually runs up to right here, but I'm leaving it on the manifold. And then your breather separator box, three 10mm bolts there, break them loose, leave it connected to the intake. These two right here are 12mm, and that hose clamp was an 8mm. And then all your intake manifold bolts are 12mm. You got a nut on this side, a nut on this side, and the rest of them are bolts. Show you all the sizes right there. That's all the sizes. You get two longer ones. Also, make sure you got your two brackets removed from underneath the manifold to the block. They're 14mm bolts. One on the left side here has got 3, and the one on the right side's got 3 as well. After you got everything unbolted, just grab it and wiggle it off the studs there, and it'll slide right off. And there you have it. Okay, next we'll remove the knock sensor, 12mm bolt. On the other end of the knock sensor, the connector, it actually hooks to this little bracket right here. So it just slides right off of there. And you can go ahead and remove the bolt and remove the whole assembly there. If your knock sensor is cracked or damaged at all, it is definitely a good thing to replace, which ours is pretty bad condition. I'm not sure exactly what happened to that thing, but that thing is not supposed to look like that. So we'll have to replace that. Okay, now we're going to remove this hose, and Rebecca is going to remove it all as one piece. It's a 19mm on this little bracket here. Ours is being a little stubborn, so we're going to use an impact gun on it, but you want to be very careful because everything's going to start spinning around in circles as soon as it breaks loose. Just want to get it loose like that and use a ratchet wrench or whatever to take it the rest of the way off. Might get a little bit of coolant come out too. Be prepared for that. Okay, next we're going to remove the hose. This is the one that looped up to the intake manifold before. This particular clamp is 8mm, which the OEM one would be 8mm as well. Someone's obviously pulled the front covers off this in the oil pan before, because you can see the colored RTV on there. That's not stock. And inside there you can see your thermostat. If any of these hoses or anything are cut or cracked or breaking or anything, definitely replace them. This one's definitely got to be replaced. Okay, next we're going to take the oil filter bracket off. Go ahead and remove the oil filter. Get it out of the way. You have 4 12mm bolts around. Move all those in a crisscross pattern. Okay, just take a hammer, the rubber end of the hammer, and just tap off the bracket and take it off. Break the gasket off behind it. Okay, right here behind the oil filter bracket, where it would go, there is a small hole here, and it has a bypass valve, which is basically a ball with a spring on the back of it. which basically all that does is when your oil filter clogs up and will not flow oil anymore, that valve will open up, that bypass valve will open up and allow oil to go into the motor, but it will be unfiltered oil. So it's a known trick to actually remove that and plug that off, just so you don't get unfiltered oil going through your motor for whatever apparent reasons. So as long as you keep your oil change and your filter change regularly, you shouldn't even have to worry about that anyways. So ours is already broken anyway, so we're definitely going to have to remove that and plug it off, but we'll go into that later. And all 4 bolts on that was all the same length. Okay, next we're going to remove our crank pulley. It's a 27mm bolt. Impact gun works great. Okay, rather than removing the bolt, you want to thread it in a couple more turns because you're going to need that end to pull the pulley off. So just thread it in a couple turns. Then you want to install your puller on. You want to grab onto the second slot there for the belt. Don't grab onto the first one because it's too thin. You could break it. And then take your bolt for your puller and stick it on the end of the bolt there. Snug it up so it'll hold itself on. And then go ahead and take a wrench and pull it off. Now it's loose, take the pullers off, remove the bolt, and then pull the pulley off. As you notice, there is a small keyway on the end of the crankshaft here. And if you look on the inside of the crank pulley, there is a notch right here. That's where it has to be lined. That notch has to be lined up with that keyway on the crankshaft there, because that's what locks the crank pulley onto the crank. You want to go ahead and thread the bolt and washer back into the crankshaft because we'll need that to turn the crankshaft. Okay, we're going to flip the motor over to remove the oil pan. You want to be very careful doing this because the head is very heavy and it's going to fall over on you. So be extra careful with this. You want to go slow with it. And it probably will spill some fluid out, possibly. So be prepared for that too. You want to roll it over and get your pin lined up and get your pin back in. Okay, now we're going to remove the oil pan. They're 10mm bolts. You want to move them in a crisscross pattern. There's no actual sequence. Just start wherever you start and do it in a crisscross pattern. We'll go ahead and do that now. And all these bolts will all be the same length. There are 12 bolts altogether. After you have them all off, you're going to break the seal, the liquid gasket around the oil pan. You want to take a gasket scraper or a 5-in-1 tool like we have, and a hammer, and lightly tap around it, but you want to be very careful not to gouge into the block. You do not want to scratch it. You do not want to dent it or damage it in any way. Someone's already redone this one before, that's why it's got this different color RTV on it. It's definitely not stock, don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Because that will gouge the block. Basically what you want to do is, you want to take it and knock into it, but don't go past this lip. Like inside there, you just want to get it go around like so. All the way around. And when it gets to some point, it'll actually just pop up anyways. But you don't want to take the knife in too far. You want to cut it enough because you didn't cut it right there. Alright, before you pull the oil pan up, after you got all the RTV broke loose, you want to be careful and pick the oil pan straight up and off the motor because you don't want any of this dirt or anything to fall into the motor. Even though we're still going to clean it up later, just be extra careful with it and try to keep it as clean as possible. Basically, now you got the oil pan off, you can see the internals here. Not sure if you can see it or not, but inside the bottom of the pistons, it's still filled up with oil. So we're going to have a lot of oil drainage. So you want to have an oil pan below when you go to flip it back over, just to get all the oil out and let it drain all the way out. But from the looks of this, looks like there was some coolant leaking into the oil. So I definitely suspect a bad head gasket. Okay, we're going to move the oil pickup tube now, two 12mm bolts. We're going to go ahead and flip the motor back over now, just let it all drain out the pistons and everything and remove the valve cover. This is going to be a little harder than flipping it over because the head's on the bottom and the head is the heavy part right now, so it's going to be a little tough to flip it over. Okay, now we're going to remove the valve cover. You need to do it in numeric order. You want to remove the bolt completely. And as far as keeping track of your bolts, these two right here are going to be longer, the rest are all going to be the same size. This is an S14 head. Okay, after you have all the bolts off, you're going to pull the valve cover up. On the valve cover gasket, there's two half moons on the front and the back. They are RTV'd, so they will probably stick to it, so the valve cover gasket will probably stay on the head when you pull it up. And the spark plug hole gaskets will probably come with the valve cover. We'll go ahead and pull it up now. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they go. These stay. We'll go ahead and pull the valve cover gasket off now. Just need to peel it off. The half moons in the front and the back where they're RTV'd. Because the rest of the valve cover gasket is not RTV'd. Along the rails here and everything, they do not need RTV, only in the little half moons on the front and the back. And your spark plug cover gasket, we'll go ahead and pull that off. Normally there's a chain guide on the head there. It's two 12mm bolts there. Ours has already been removed, but that's basically one thing that makes your KA make a clanking sound, but this one's already been removed. Okay, showing you on an S13 head right here, as you can see, the back behind the spark plug hole there, that is where your valve cover bolt is. Where on the S14 it's to the very back, right back there. But that's going to be the only difference on the S13 head and S14 head. Okay, you want to get the motor at top dead center again. Basically, the best way to do that, we're going to get it top dead center before we pull the distributor out. You look at your cam gears. Basically, you have the two little dots right there, and on the other cam gear right there. They should be lined up with silver links on the chain, which these are not. Whoever installed this chain on here installed it improperly to begin with, but we'll go over how to install it properly when we go to put the motor back together. But to make sure you're at top dead center, you want to have them pointing in the position they are. And also another way to tell is have a screwdriver in your number one cylinder. When your piston's at top dead center, it'll be all the way up. But of course, that'll happen twice. So that's why you need to check the dots on the cam gears. The screwdriver can actually be all the way up and your dots will be off. So you'll need to go a whole nother revolution to get it top dead center. And also another way is look at your lobes on number one cylinder. They'll be opposite directions. Okay, another way to tell you're at top dead center is move the distributor cap. You have two 8mm bolts, top and bottom. You're going to remove those two. Okay, before you pull the distributor cap off, basically number one cylinder right there will be in a straight line with the rotor button on the inside and the connector right there to the left. So we'll go ahead and slide that off. And as you can see, the rotor button's right here. Someone's already marked a white line with this one, but the rotor button is here, the coil is here, and the distributor casing is here. So it's all in a straight line. That'll tell you you're at top dead center onto the distributor before you pull it off. Okay, next we're going to pull the distributor off. You have two 10mm bolts, one on top, one on bottom. Remove both of them. Your bolts will probably look a little different than ours because ours are not stock. Someone has replaced them. Whoever had this motor before. Now when you're going to pull it out, you basically just grab it and pull it out. There's a rubber O-ring that holds it in there and seals it up. So you just pull it straight out. Might be a little difficult to pull out. Might have a little tension to it, but it will come out. Try not to move around too much. And it is out. Okay, now we're going to remove the water pump. So we're going to go ahead and remove the water pump pulley if you still have it on your motor. We just had it bolted on there so we wouldn't lose it. Okay, and just remove all 4 10mm nuts on it. The studs might possibly come with it, but that is normal. Remove those later. You have 5 12mm bolts holding the water pump on. Remove them in a crisscross pattern. This one has been replaced before, as you can see the colored RTV. If you plan on replacing your whole front cover with the oil pump assembly and getting a new water pump as well, I wouldn't even worry about doing this step. But we're going to show you in this video how to do it. And it's a whole lot easier to get the water pump off of the front cover while it's still attached to the motor, because you're actually going to have to tap it with a rubber mallet to break the seal loose. And all 5 of those bolts are the same length. After you get all 5 out, you want to take a rubber mallet and tap on the water pump, break the seal loose. We'll have to clean all that gasket off, but we'll do that later. Okay, we're going to move the top timing cover now. There are 6 12mm bolts and 3 10mm bolts. We're going to remove all the 12mm bolts first. There's no certain order. You definitely want to keep track of all these bolts. Okay, now we'll go ahead and remove the front 10mm bolts. Okay, we're going to remove the 10mm bolt on this side. It's the one in the front. There's one right beside it, but that's actually for the bottom timing cover, so we're just going to remove the one in the front right now. Now after you have all the bolts off, we'll go ahead and remove the top timing cover. There's a little place on the right side there you want to hit with a hammer to break the gasket loose. And you should just be able to pull it off completely. Just pull it towards the passenger side. This one's been taken off before, so it has RTV all over it. And it is off. Okay, here's the bolt layout of the top timing cover. On the bottom you have the 3 10mm bolts. The one on the right side is the one on the far right side. And then 2 on the bottom is the bottom there. The 2 on the right side, the longest ones, are the one on top and the bottom of the distributor. Then you have a 12mm above that. And then you have 2 12mm on the left side. And then you have another 12mm above that, which is a little shorter. The 2 on top are the same size. And the 2 on the left side are the same size, and 2 on the right are the same size. Then the 3 10mm bolts on the bottom are all different sizes. The one on the right is the tallest, the one in the middle is the shortest, and the one on the left is the middle. Okay, next we're going to remove the water neck off the front timing cover. 3 10mm bolts. Go ahead and remove them. All 3 of those bolts are the same size. Next you want to take a rubber mallet and knock that off. You'll have the thermostat behind that, so watch out for it to fall. Sometimes they fall off. Actually our thermostat come out with our water neck, which is perfectly okay. We'll go ahead and take the thermostat off the water neck. Basically all I do is grab it and just break the gasket off of it. Okay, on the thermostat, you'll see there's a little plunger thing there that is moving. That goes on top when you go to install on the motor. We'll go ahead and put it back on the motor to show you how it's going to install on there. You just make sure that's on top, and just go ahead and stick it in the hole. And it'll go in just like that. So you want to make note of that. Okay, next we're going to pull the front timing cover off. You want to go ahead and remove the crank pulley bolt, 27mm. You definitely want to hit the ratchet to loosen it off, because if you go to try to force it off, it's just going to turn the motor backwards. So do just like he just did and hit the bottom of the ratchet like that with a good bit of force, so it'll break it loose real quick without turning the crank. Okay, we have 4 10mm bolts. We're going to remove them first. We're going to start with the one on top here. And you definitely want to keep all these in order. These are all 10mm, 4 of them. Okay, we have 5 12mm bolts. We'll go ahead and remove them. The two holes there are for where the alternator belt bracket was, which they actually hold the timing cover down too, but since we already removed them, we just kept them with the bracket. When you go to install it, you want to keep that in mind. Okay, now we're going to remove the front timing cover after we have all the bolts off. There are two dowel pins, one right there and one on the other side right there. So when you're removing it, you want to keep that in mind that they're there. We'll go ahead and take the rubber mallet and hit where the thermostat housing is, just to break the gasket loose. Then you want to pull it off. But remember, you're going to have to pull it off those dowel pins, so that's going to be a little bit of the hard part. And right behind the timing cover is the oil pump assembly. So if you turn the timing cover around, the oil pump assembly is right there. Okay, here's all our bolts for our front bottom timing cover. 10mm top right one. The next 10mm is on the bottom right. And then below that, same one. And then on the left side on the bottom, same one. The three on the bottom there are all the same size. The one on top is shorter. And as far as your 12mm bolts, all 5 of them are the same size. And as well as the alternator belt bracket bolts, they will be the same size as those two. Okay, now we're going to remove the timing chain. We're going to start with the top one. You have a tensioner on the left side who has two 10mm bolts on. We'll go ahead and remove those. There's not a whole lot of tension on that chain anyways. Both of those bolts are the same length. Be very careful when you go to pull that off because it's going to want to spring out like that. Okay, next you have a guide on the right side there. Two 10mm bolts. We'll go ahead and remove those. And as you can tell, the chain is not installed properly. The silver links are actually supposed to be lined up with the cam gear dots, but they're not. We'll go over all that when we go to install the chain back on. Show you how to do that properly. Okay, here on the cams you have where you can put a 26mm wrench on them and hold them in place. It's 26mm. Whereas on the cam gears, 24mm bolts holding them on. So you're going to hold it with a 26mm wrench on the cam and then remove the 24mm bolt to remove the cam gear. Okay, now we'll go ahead and remove it. They're pretty tight. The best way to do that is put the ratchet up with the wrench so you can squeeze it with your hand. So you have less travel to move them. Since we couldn't break ours loose by hand, we're going to use an impact gun. What you're going to want to do is remove the bolt and then grab the cam gear and pull it off the cam, which pulls straight out, and then get it off the chain, and then the chain will come off as well. Okay, now we're just going to install our cam gear back on our cam, just so we keep it with it. You don't have to tighten it down or anything, just put it on there and bolt it on. And as you can see on the cam gear, there is a notch that lines up with the dowel pin on the cam. And then the recess goes on the outside where the flat side goes towards the cam, because the recess is to hold the bolt in. Okay, next step, removing the bottom timing chain, is you have a tensioner on the side here. It has a small hole right there. We're going to use a paper clip to stick in that hole. You want to squeeze the chain with the tensioner and squeeze it closed where it has a little cutout on the tensioner there. That's actually going to line up with the hole, and the paper clip is going to hold into that. That's what's going to hold it closed. Because if you don't do this, when you take the chain off, the piston of the tensioner will just shoot out because it's spring loaded. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And then next it's two 10mm bolts to remove it. We'll go ahead and remove it. You want to be very careful because the paperclip can easily shoot out, as well as the tensioner piston. Okay, we're going to show you what's going to happen to the piston and the tensioner there. We'll go ahead and remove the paperclip and let it release out. Because it is spring loaded. We'll go ahead and pull the piston out all the way so we'll show you the spring inside of it. There you go. And that's all it does. You just stick it back in there, line the piston up with a hole and squeeze it in. And both those bolts are the same size. The bolts on the right are for the timing chain tensioner on top, which are longer than the ones on the left, which are for the bottom tensioner. This is the Nissan OEM timing chain tensioner. As you can see, it has a little hook on it. Where ours, we had to use a paper clip to stick in the hole. This one actually has a hook on it. Does the same purpose as what we did with the paper clip, but it's a whole lot better idea. We'll go ahead and take that off for you and show you how it operates. That piston will come out, and then you just squeeze it closed, put the hook on the little pin, and it holds it in place. Okay, here's your other tensioner, which is the Nissan OEM one, which has a hook on it as well. This is the top tensioner. You can see the hook there. We'll go ahead and squeeze it and release that, show you how to operate it. Whereas this one here, if it goes up too far, it still won't go past that point there because the pin hits the bracket there. We'll go ahead and squeeze it back down, hook it on. It might shoot a little oil out. And lock it down. Okay, next we're going to take the guide off. 2 6mm Allen bolts. Next, we're going to remove the tensioner arm. It's a 6mm bolt, 6mm Allen bolt. Okay, this is the Nissan OEM timing chain guide here. Where on our motor it was an aftermarket one. This one is completely plastic. That is why they revised this part and put a steel piece on the back of it to keep it stronger. The bolts are 6mm Allen bolts. On this side you have the other guide, which has a 6mm bolt on it as well. Okay, next we're going to remove the idler sprocket. It's a 19mm bolt. Since ours was too tight, we're going to use the impact gun. Okay, after you get the bolt loosened off, you want to take the chain on the bottom at the crankshaft and get it off the gear while you pull the sprocket down and out. Just remove it all as one piece. Okay, next we're going to remove the oil pump drive spacer, and right behind that is the crankshaft sprocket. We'll remove that after we get this off. As you can see, there is a small keyway like we talked about on the crankshaft pulley. So it just slides right over that. Ours is getting a little stuck at the very end of it. Just want to kind of wiggle it while you're pulling it out. It will come off. It just take a little bit of coaxing. Then next you can go ahead and pull the crank sprocket off. Comes off the same way, just pull it straight out. It might get a little stuck too. There's probably just a burr on the keyway there. That's probably what's holding it up. As you'll note, there's another keyway that held the crankshaft sprocket on. And if you look at the crankshaft sprocket, the gear side of it points to the outside of the motor, and the other end that bumps out goes towards the crankshaft. And it has a notch in it to fit inside the keyway. Okay, we're going to move this seal right here. It should normally just slide out, but somebody RTV'd it. This little plastic gasket. Okay, we're going to remove the cams now. We're going to start with number 1 cam cap. 10mm bolts. You want to remove both bolts and remove the cam cap completely. They all have a stamp on top of them. They're labeled E1 through 6 and I1 through 6. E meaning exhaust and I meaning intake. We're going to start with number 2 cam cap. Again, they're 10mm bolts. And you remove both bolts and cam cap completely. Okay, we'll remove number 3 now. We'll move on to number 4. Basically what you're doing is you're working your way inside out. Move on to number 5. Move on to number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. Basically it's raising the cam up. Number 10. Number 11. Number 12. What we're doing now is we're writing an I for intake and an E for exhaust on our cam gear bolts, just so when we go to pull the cams out, we'll know which one's which. But you definitely want to wipe them off and get all the oil and grease off of them first, and then use a Sharpie. And this is your exhaust cam because your exhaust is on this side. This is your intake cam because your intake is on this side. You want to turn it a little bit while you're picking up on it. It'd be a little tight. Basically what you want to do when you go to pull it out, you're going to want to press down on this side a little bit because it's actually kicked up. Press down on that side a little bit and then try and turn the cam itself a little bit with the gear while you're pulling up on it. Break it loose. That one there was stuck in there pretty good. Go ahead and take it out. Then we're going to remove our intake cam. Okay, basically what you want to do next is you have a shim here on top, and then your valve lifter is right below it. You want to wipe all the oil off of it so you can take a Sharpie and write on them, because they're actually all shimmed out for each lifter. And if you get them off, like you put this one over here, it's going to be off. So you're going to get the clearances right. So the best way to do is again wipe them off, take a Sharpie and write E1, E2, E3, E4, and so on. I1, I2, I3, I4, and so on. Okay, now we're going to move the head bolts. There's 10, and it's a 10mm Allen bolt. We have a 10mm Allen bolt socket. We'll go ahead and remove it now, starting with number 1. you want to do it in a two or three step process. Basically, we're going to do ours in a 3-step process. We're going to turn it like an 1/8 of a turn in 1 through 10. Then we're going to come back and do another 1/8 of a turn, 1 through 10, and then we'll come back and remove them all completely. You want to do it in a 2 or 3 step process to keep from warping the head or damaging the head in any way. So we'll go ahead and start with number 1 now. We'll loosen it at 1/8 of a turn, and then we'll move on to number 2. They're going to be pretty tight. Now we'll do number 2. Do number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. And number 10. Okay, we'll start over with number 1 again for your second process, the 1/8 of a turn. Basically the same process we just did. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. And number 10. Okay, we're going to start with number 1 again and remove the bolt completely. There'll be a washer below it. You'll need a magnetic wand to get the washer out. Okay, we'll start with number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. And number 10. On the washer here, there's a chamfered side on this side, and this side is flat. So basically the flat side goes down onto the head just like that, and the chamfered side is pointing up when you go to install them. Just keep that in mind. Okay, after you have all bolts removed, you can just pick the head straight up. There'll be 2 little small dowel pins underneath it. Okay, now remove the old head gasket off. Just take a 5-1 tool or a gasket scraper and scrape it off. You have your dowel pin here and here, which is what I was talking about, which actually helps you install your head gasket on and your head on to line them up properly. Just go ahead and scrape it off. Just be real careful not to scratch or gouge the top of the block. You want to scrape it off rather than pull it off because it removes a whole lot more stuff. If you just pulled it straight up, it'd probably leave more gasket on the head, which would require more work to clean it off. This one actually should go around this way, but whoever installed it last time cut the front off for the timing covers, which you do not want to do. Okay, we're going to remove the rear main seal plate. There are 6 10mm bolts. There's no sequence. You can just remove which side ever you want to start on. One thing you want to note is the 2 on the bottom, left and right on the bottom, are longer than the other 4. And the other 4 are all the same size. Okay, now we're going to remove the seal plate. Take a 5-1 tool and a hammer and break the seal on it. On the bottom on both sides there is a dowel pin that you have to pry the seal off of. So you want to do it on both sides without scratching or damaging the block in any way. I'll show you the dowel pins when we get it off. Okay, there's one dowel pin right there. And the other one is right there. Okay, now we're going to remove the main bearing cap, which has 10 17mm bolts. You want to do a 3-step process just like we did with the head. We'll start with number 1, breaking an 1/8 of a turn. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. Now we'll go back through and do the same process again. Start with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. Now starting with number 1, we'll go ahead and remove all the bolts completely. You want to keep track of these because 1, 2, and 9 are longer than the others. Again, you want to remove them in a 3-step process just so you don't warp or damage anything when you take it off. Again, number 1, number 2, and number 9 are longer than the rest. The rest of them are all the same size. You can also tell because the small bolts have a B stamped on top, where the taller ones do not. Okay, next we're going to pull the girdle off. You're going to use some gloves or something to put on the block, and then use a pry bar to pry up on it. Go real slow with it, be very patient with it, because you don't want to damage anything. You just want to work on each corner just a little bit at a time until it pops up completely. And after it's off, just pick it straight up. Your bearings will probably stay on, which is perfectly fine. Okay, now we're going to remove the rod caps and the pistons. First, we'll start with number 3 because it's on top. Go ahead and just remove the 2 14mm nuts. There's no sequence, just remove both nuts. And you want to keep track of the orientation of the rod cap because it needs to go back on the same way if you're going to reuse these. You should be able to grab it and pick it straight up. If not, you can use some channel locks to get it off. Okay, next we're going to remove the piston and rod assembly out of the motor. Basically, if your motor's been sitting for a while, you'll probably want to use a hammer to get it out because it'll be stuck in the cylinder wall. You just want to take the butt of the hammer and put it on the piston, preferably a rubber one. And then you'll tap down on it, but what you want to do before you do that is make sure that the rod bolts do not hit the crankshaft journals. If your bearings are still in there, then that's great because it'll protect it from getting scratched, but just keep your fingers on the rod bolts just so they do not hit the journal while you tap down on the pistons. Just tap it all the way down. It's not going to fall out. But you definitely want to watch out for your bearings to fall out. Once you get it so far down, after you get it past the crankshaft, you're going to want to watch your rod and keep it from hitting the cylinder wall while it comes out. And then after you got all that ready to go, then push down the rod bolt while holding your hand down under the block to catch the piston when it gets out. But again, you want to be very careful not to let the rod scratch the cylinder wall on the way out. We're going to get ours bored anyways, but still it's good practice to do it without scratching and tearing anything up. If it gets stuck like ours is now, use the hammer and knock it down. And if you want to reuse these rods and pistons, keep them in the same orientation and in the same cylinder as you took them off. As you can see on the piston here, there's a dot on top that is supposed to point forward to the front of the engine. That's one way you can keep the orientation with the piston on these OEM pistons. Okay, now we'll take off the cap on number 2. Again, you want to remove both rod nuts. Okay, now since our rod cap is stuck, we're going to take the rubber end of the hammer and tap down on the rod bolts. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to push this piston out. Again, making sure not to damage the journals and the crankshaft. Just press the rod all the way down as far as you can get it. And if you can't get it all the way out with your hand, use the hammer. And also take care of the cylinder walls with the rod when you're taking it out. Okay, now we're going to remove number 4. Let's go ahead and take the cap off. We turned the crankshaft over to get the rods on top. And we got this one kicked back just a little bit just so you can see it a little better. It's going to be a whole lot easier if you have it pointing straight up. Which this one might be kicked back just a little too far to get the cap off, but we'll make do. If it gets stuck like this, take the hammer and put it on the piston and knock down on it. Alright, now we're going to move the piston and rod out. Make sure you don't hit the oil squirter with your hammer. We got the crank turned back a little bit just so you can see things a little better. Okay, now we'll remove number 1. Okay, now we'll knock the piston halfway down and then I'll show you from underneath. Okay, now we're going to remove the piston. Okay, when you're going to move your crankshaft, just pick it straight up, but make sure you have somewhere to sit it. We're going to put ours in a 5-gallon bucket. Okay, now we're going to move the oil squirters. They are 10mm 12-point bolts, which means you have to use a 12-point socket. You definitely want to keep track of which cylinder these were on, because they are pointing different directions. Number 2 and number 4 are going the same direction, and number 1 and number 3 are going the same direction. As you'll notice on all of our bearings, they're all scratched and worn. That's because on the bypass valve, where the oil bracket is, our bypass valve was broke and the ball was out. So it was sucking in unfiltered oil. So that's what scarred everything up on ours. We'll go ahead and remove the bearings. You want to remove the bearings completely. Should just slide right out. Okay, now we're going to remove the thrust bearing. Just take a flathead screwdriver, put it right on the notch right there, but do not scratch the block. Just tap on it. If it's kind of stuck in there, don't want to move real good, then you can use a hammer or whatever. Just be very gentle with it and do not scratch the surface here. After you remove all your bearings off your block, make sure that you number them. Like this is main journal number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the ones on your block will be your top. The ones on your girdle will be the bottom. So make sure you mark all your bearings so you'll know where they go after you get everything cleaned up, because you'll install them back in to mic out all the journals, to get your oil clearances, to make sure you're within spec. And as far as your rod bearings, if you're using new rods, you would not need to keep your old rod bearings. Okay, you want to remove the dowel pins on your block. You have one there and one there. As you can see in front there, there's a little cut. So basically just take a pair of nose pliers and squeeze it and rock it back and forth while you pull it up, and it should come right out. Alright, now we'll pull the next one out. You're going to want to mic out all your crankshaft journals, the rods and the mains, and you're going to want to install your bearings back on your block and on your girdle, and you're going to want to torque your girdle back down to spec in a 3-step process. And what you're going to want to do is take a dial bore gauge and measure your ID of your main bearings while the girdle's torqued down, and then you're going to want to measure the OD of your crankshaft journal, and then you'll just minus the two to get your bearing clearance. And then we'll look on the factory service manual for clearance and to see if we're out of spec, if we can get within spec with one of the grade standard bearings, because you have 5 different grade standard bearings. But we'll go into all this in the next video and it'll make a whole lot more sense to you. But you're going to want to do all this to make sure that you don't need to grind down the crankshaft journals anywhere. When you take your block to get it bored out, make sure you have your girdle installed and torque down the spec, because if you don't, when they go to bore the cylinders, each cylinder out, it can actually warp it and distort the cylinders and they'll be off. They also make a torque plate that you can torque down to the top of the block where the head sits, but most machine shops don't have those, so you definitely want to make sure you got your girdle torqued down, and remove all your bearings off the girdle and off the block as well. As you can see in the picture here, this is your torque sequence to install the girdle back in, where you got number 1, number 2, but you want to do it in a 3-step process so it goes down evenly and flat and stretches the bolts. So basically what I would do 15 foot-pounds to start with, go 1 through 10, and then I'll come back and do 30 foot-pounds 1 through 10, and then I'll come back for the final torque of 41 foot-pounds 1 through 10. Okay, we're going to send our block to the machine shop and get the deck surfaced so it'll be perfectly level all the way across and smooth. It'll remove all the old head gasket off of it and everything, and we definitely want to do that so our head gasket will seal properly. We'll do the same with our head too. We're going to get our block bored 20 over because we're going to use new pistons. Anytime you use new pistons, you want to get the block bored and honed so you can put the cross lines in it, which will help seat the piston rings in. And also back to the deck of the block, you want them to surface the front timing cover with it too, just so it's level with the surface of the block. And if you plan on using a metal head gasket, make sure you tell them to surface it to a mirror finish, because if they don't, it's a good possibility it could leak, because those are known to leak unless there's a mirror finish on the block and the head. As long as your cylinder walls are in decent shape, you could do 20 over. If they're in really bad shape, you might have to do 40 over, but you can just get your machine shop to figure all that out for you, because that's what you're going to be paying them to do anyways. But when we get it all back, we'll check everything out, make sure they've done their job correctly and everything's done right. We're also going to get them to hot tank the block to get it totally clean and check for cracks and everything. Okay, we got our block back from the machine shop. They painted it because when you put it in a hot tank, if you don't get it painted or put a little bit of oil on or anything, it's going to want to start surface rusting on you. We got new freeze plugs installed. We went ahead and let the machine shop do all this little stuff like this because it doesn't really cost a lot of money and it's easier for them to do it. They have the tools to do it with. We went ahead and got the new oil bypass valve put in. The old one had to be drilled out because it's crushed in there pretty hard. So you can't just pull it out by hand. You got to drill it out and install the new one. It's real simple to put in though. You just put it in and knock it in by hammer using a socket or a drift or whatever you want to use to do it with. But like I said, machine shop has tools to do all this, so you might as well let them handle it. But if you remember before when we were talking about this, we were talking about we were going to plug it off. Well, I talked to the owner of this block, and he said that since this is going to be a race motor, he wanted to go ahead and put that in there just in case the filter clogged up, because he's going to have over $2,000 in his motor by the time it's done, and he don't want to risk $2,000 over a little small part like this. It's not that big a deal. So that's something you might want to consider when you go to either plug it up or replace it with a new one if yours is damaged. We got the top of our block decked. One thing you want to consider when you're getting into deck the block is you don't want them to go too far, because if they go down too far, that's going to start messing with your compression. Which you can make up your compression if you use a metal head gasket with a thicker head gasket. In our case, we're going to use a stock head gasket, so we just got it surfaced down just enough to get it flat, level, and get all the old gasket off of it. And also, if you use a metal head gasket, you're going to want a mirror finish on this, which on this one here has a small mirror finish to it, but it would basically need to be polished even more to basically be a mirror finish. And showing you here on this cylinder, you can see the cross lines in it. The cross lines come from honing the cylinder out after you bore it, which help the piston rings seat properly. Also, there's a small chamfer on the top edge here, which they do after they bore it out. And we got all our cylinders bored out 20 over. In the next video, the motor build video for the KA24DE, we're going to blueprint this motor and assemble it.